Some of my favorite high school experiences were taking the SATs and the ACTs, just like everybody else, right? I actually bombed the SATs so badly when I took them, I didn't have a calculator, and I went to an Odd Future concert the night before. Was it worth it, you ask? Look at me now. I'll let you decide. But reminiscing over this had me wondering if we should even be taking these tests in the first place. So I decided to see what researchers have to say about it. Oh, and just FYI, the Odd Future show was tight. If you're a junior or senior in high school and want to go to a four-year college, you're probably freaking out right now about the SATs and ACTs. And speaking from personal experience, bombing them can seriously hurt your chances of getting into your dream school. But get this, in response to various critiques of these tests, lots of schools are making them optional. Really? Where were you guys when I was applying for college? So, should standardized tests like the SAT and ACT still be used for college admissions? Of the roughly 3 million seniors who graduated from American high schools in 2016, more than 2 million took the ACT and more than 1.6 million took the SAT. Some took both. That's because the majority of four-year colleges, including most state schools, require at least one of these tests. But that's changing. About 1/3 of four-year colleges and universities in America now have some type of test-optional admissions policy. So for most of these schools, you can submit test scores, but you don't have to. To understand why any school requires these tests, we have to study a little history. The SAT, the older of the two, grew out of an Army IQ exam from World War I, something called the Army Alpha Test. It caught the attention of Harvard's president, who thought the test could help identify smart, promising students who didn't fit the mold of the typical boarding school applicant. He wanted to have more geographic diversity. Most other schools soon followed suit. In other words, the test was originally intended as a way to diversify applicant pools, the exact opposite of what critics say it does today. Kinda ironic, huh? Fast forward to today, the private test prep market is a $2 billion industry. The average private test prep class from places like the Princeton Review or Kaplan can cost you about $600. I don't know about you, but in high school, I didn't have $600. I don't have $600 now. And then taking the test isn't cheap either. The registration fees alone for the SAT and the ACT cost about another $65 each. The College Board, the nonprofit that administers the SAT, does offer fee waivers for qualified low-income students. Check that out in the description below. But still, all these costs add up. Critics say that these exams are an unfair and inaccurate way to measure college readiness. They argue that the tests fail to measure the potential of many qualified college applicants who can't afford the expensive prep classes. One major academic study released in early 2018 looked at hella student admission data from 28 test-optional schools across the US, ranging from small liberal arts schools to large public universities. The data was then compared to that of similar schools that still require the test. The report concluded that 1, high school grades are better than tests at predicting how well students will do in college. 2, schools that were test optional generally saw a big boost in the number of applicants from underrepresented communities, especially low-income students of color. And 3, students who chose to submit their scores and those who didn't had virtually the same grades and graduation rates in college. Now don't get me wrong here, it's not like the SATs and the ACTs are going away anytime soon. Not even close. Most of the top schools in the country and almost every state school, including all the UC campuses, still require them and take them seriously. Many school admissions offices still think that the tests do a good job of measuring academic rigor, but shouldn't be the only thing considered. Test advocates say that, for the most part, the high test scores are the same students who take the tougher classes and are super motivated to get good grades, no matter what their racial or socioeconomic background is. And yes, some of the biggest supporters of these tests are the companies that make and profit from them, like the College Board. One former College Board official claimed that the big study I mentioned earlier was, quote, all over the place and didn't really prove that the test optional policies were responsible for a more diverse student body. Sure, those schools may have gotten more diverse, but so have many other schools that still require these tests. Instead, the College Board points to an old study from 2012 that found that the SATs combined with grades proved the best predictor of first-year college success across economic groups. Skeptics of these results, though, were quick to point out that the funding for that study came from, you guessed it, the College Board. Defenders of the test agree that grades are important, but they also argue it's better to have more information about an applicant, especially considering that grade inflation is a lot more common in some high schools than others. But with the standardized test, everyone's taken the same thing and it's scored the exact same way. And the testing industry claims that the tests are continually evolving to better measure relevant skills and test what students are actually learning in high school, rather than whether they can remember the definition of legerdemain and perspicacity. Look those up, because we definitely had to do that. Test critics say that no matter how much the test improves, it remains fundamentally unequal in its design because it grades on a bell curve, meaning the difference between a high score and a low score can be just a couple of questions. But that tiny difference can determine who gets in and who doesn't. So now, it's your turn. Let's say you're the one who's deciding who gets into your dream school. What do you think is the best way to measure if a student's ready for college? Let us know in the comments below. Oh, and speaking of test prep, check out this video about procrastination. It might not be as bad as you've been told. And if you've been looking for a way to procrastinate, watch this dope video that asks, is video game addiction really a thing? And as always, guys, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. I'm your host, Miles Best. Watch the videos. Now.